This is Gemara in Kesubos, Daf Nun Zayin. Learning for today and the entire month of Elul has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf, Lezchut Neshama, Reyzel Bas Mair. And Mir Hashem, the learning of every single person, day by day, daf by daf, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam should bring as Reyzel Bas Mair into a higher place in Gan Eden Shalmailo. We pick it up on the bottom of Nun Vav Amud Beis on the last line, in which the Gemara begins today by telling us a story that Achdei Dormi Bar Chama Havis Nesiva LeRav Avia. The sister of Rabbi Bar Chama was married to Rav Avia. We turn over the page, so they were married, and therefore what says the Gemara on the top of Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, Irchas Kesubasa. And lo and behold, what happened was that they lost their Kesuba. So also like I made to Rav Yosef, they came to Rav Yosef and Amar Lahu. Rav Yosef told them, Hachi Amar Rav Avu, this is what Rav Avu, Yudah Amar Shmuel says, Zudevi Rameir, that these are the words of Rameir. The Rameir is of the opinion that if one does not have a Kesuba, they're not allowed to live together. Why? Because it's considered Bilas Zunos. Aval Chachamim Aimrim. But what do the Chachamim hold? Masha Adam Shanim Beloi Kesuba. One is allowed to stay married for 2 or 3 years even without a Kesuba. So comments the Gemara that the problem of staying married without a Kesuba is only Rameir. But the Chachamim disagree, and the Chachamim say, indeed, you're allowed to stay married. Amrle Abaya says, Abaya, very good that you're telling me that the Chachamim disagree. Very good that you're telling me that according to the Chachamim, you're allowed to stay married even for 2 or 3 years without a Kesuba. But ask the Gemara 1 second. What is the Psak Halacha? The Psak Halacha here seemingly is like Rav Meir Big Zeraisov, and therefore Yachi Zil Kasevla. Therefore, says Rav Yosef, you're right. Go and write a new Kesuba for her. The fact that we paskin like Rav Meir, that staying together without a Kesuba is a bilas nos. Therefore, go and write a Kesuba for her. And that's the end of part 1, which really is a wrap up of yesterday, teaching us this halacha of Rav Meir that one is not allowed to stay married without a Kesuba. And of course, this has much practical relevance. If someone does not know where their Kesuba is, of course, it does not mean that they just don't know. It does not mean they have to be holding their Kesuba at all times. One could go on vacation and leave the Kesuba at home. It just means one has to know at all times where their Kesuba is. And now we begin, says the Gemara, we had a machlokes of Yesi and Rav Yehuda with regard to what is the status if one is allowed to deduct from their Kesuba Baal Peh. Orally, can a woman say, it's as if I accepted 100, it's as if I accepted half the Kesuba. So says the Gemara, and let's try to hone in and focus on the names that are talking. So who's talking? It's Rav Dimi that's saying over this story in the name of Shimon Bazi, Rav ben Levi, Misham Bar Kapara, Machlokes b'Tchila, that the debate between Rav Yehuda and Rav Yosi in regard to whether you could detract from the Kesuba orally, says the Gemara, is a Machlokes b'Tchila. But at the end, we don't know what beginning and end. Those are obviously objective words. We have to know what those mean. But says the Gemara that libisai, if everyone agrees, you cannot be Michael, you cannot subtract for the Kesuba. But that is how Rav Dimi said it over the name of Shimon Bazi, name of Shimon Levi, Misham Bar Kapara. Rav Yochanan disagrees. Bein bezu machlokes, says Rav Yochanan, whether it's l'bechila, whether it is l'besayif, the beginning of the end, the halacha is that you're able to detract and she's able to forgive the Kesuba. So Amar Rav Avua, so comments Rav Avua that I heard this statement of Rav Yochanan, that Anav Rav Shimon Levi lo pulling out dadi. That what did Rav Yochanan say? That I and Rav Shimon Levi do not indeed disagree. Why not? My betchila to come Rav Shimon Levi tchila as chopa. Rav Shimon Levi said tchila. What does tchila mean? The beginning of chopa. Umay soif. What does that mean? Soif bia. V'chikamino ana. And when Rav Yochanan said that bein bezu machlokes is machlokes in both cases, that's referring to what? Tchila chopa v'soif chopa. So by the beginning and end of the chuppah, this is the debate in both cases. But at the end of the chuppah, which is the Chilas Biyah, which is the beginning of the Biyah, that is when everyone will agree. So that is how Rav Dimi, said over this halacha. That was Rav Dimi in the name of Shimon Bazim, Yeshua ben Levi, the name of Bar Kapara. Now says the Gemara in the 5th Wailan, Ki also Ravin. Now it's a Ravin that's saying something very similar. Mishum ben Bazim, Mishum ben Levi, Mishum ben Kapara. Sound very familiar, the same names. Ma'achloik as libis soif, but it's the exact opposite. It's not ma'achloik as only libis chila. It's ma'achloik as it libis soif. Ma'achloikis libis soif, ma'achloikis is going to be at the end. Not like we said in the last narrow line, ma'achloikis is libis chila. Avat chila divrei kol moicheles, but in the beginning everyone agrees, you could yes forgive it. Rav Yochanan, now in this version, Rav Yochanan comments and he says, Be'mizu ma'achloikis. And Amar Rav Avu Alim Varshlem and Rav Yochanan and Rav Shimon Levi Labaguna Dadi Ma'ile B'Soif Rav Shimon Levi. There's no machlokes now. He owns it on the B'Soif. What does it mean at the end? Soif Chapa. My Tchila is Chapa. What does beginning mean? The beginning of Chapa. V'chekamina, I know when I Rav Yochanan said Be'mizu machlokes, that's Tchila Biyah, B'Soif Biyah, but there's no real machlokes. And Amar Rav Baba comments Rav Baba on this debate between Ravin and Rav Avu. He loved the Amar Rav Avu L'didim Varshlem. If not for the fact that he said over the name of Rav Yochanan, that we do not disagree. Hava Amina, says Rav Baba, you know how I would have explained Rav Yochanan Shuvin Levi Pligi, that Rav Yochanan Shuvin Levi are arguing, but Rav Diman Ravin Loi Pligi. I would have thought to learn that Rav Diman and Rav Avin are not arguing, rather it's about Chlogis Rav Yochanan Shuvin Levi. My time to come Ravin, so Choppa, what it mean into the Choppa, my Rav Dimi. Tchilas Biyah. And of course, Choppa, Tchilas Biyah, the end of the Choppa, the beginning of the active intercourse is one and the same. My Kamash Malahand, what's the Chiddush? A Kamash Land, the Pligi, Amarayim, than have Shayu. We rather have two Amarayim arguing within their own Svara, arguing a time than have Shayu. And we don't want to have two Amarayim that are arguing about what they are. And we continue with the Mishnah on the bottom of the Zayin and Aleph, in which the Mishnah discusses a case which really harkens us back all the way to the beginning of the Masechta, a case in which there's a date for marriage set, they did the Irusin, and now it's time for the Nisuin. And one of the parties asks for time to prepare. So let's see. Says the Mishnah, once the husband says, okay, it's time to get married, they did Erusin, and now the husband says, let's do Nisuin, let's do Choppa, let's get married. If she is a Besula, we give her 12 months to prepare herself. And just like we give a woman 12 months, so too, if the woman says she is ready to get married, then the husband is allowed to request for 12 months to get himself ready. That is in the case of a Besula, a woman who has never had relations. Ula almana shleishim yaim. If there's almana, a woman who is previously married, she doesn't get the full 12 months, but rather she gets 30 days to prepare for the wedding. So let's say that day comes, 12 months time comes, and yet they did not get married. At that point, and this was the dinner which we spoke about in the beginning of the Masechta, at that point the husband is obligated to feed his wife, and if he is a kayin, she is allowed to eat shuma. Continues the Mishnah of Tarfin, Aymer Nosla called shuma. Says Rav Tarfin, he is able to give his wife all her food from shuma. Which of course Rashi explains the chiddush, because when she is tamei, she is not allowed to eat shuma. So how is he always giving her truma? What she can eat at the time of the month that she's tamei? And Rashi explains she'll take the truma and she'll sell that truma for food. Whereas Rav Akiva, in order to avoid the issue like we just spoke out, says Rav Akiva, no, you always have to give her part of her food from non-truma so that she can eat it when she is tamei. And the Mishnah continues that what is the halacha if after she's ready to get married, the husband dies? So what happens when the husband dies? This reminds us of the previous Masechta of Yavamis. She becomes a Yavama, and now she can marry the husband's brother. So says the Mishnah, 4 lines to the bottom, a Yavam min amachal b'tshuma. A Yavam, before he obviously does Yibam, before he consummates the marriage, is not able to feed his prospective wife Chuma. Asa shisha chadash v'nei abav shisha chadash v'nei Yavam. Let's say she spent 6 months in front of the husband and 6 months in front of the Yavam. Or let's say she spent almost a full 12 months in front of the husband minus 1 day. 1 day in front of the Yavam. She's not eat chuma. Learning the chiddush over here that the din that she's allowed to feed her chuma is solely when the full 12 months elapses and he did not consummate the marriage. He did not do chuppah. However, if part of that time was in front of the Yavama, the din is going to change. Says the Mishnah on the last line, Zu Mishnah Rishayna. This was the original halacha. The original halacha that you're allowed to eat chuma after 12 months of a basula passes or 30 days of almana passes. However, but a latter Bezdin came along and they said, as we turn over to the Zayinim Beis, the latter Mishnah, the Bezdin came along and said, no, even if 12 months elapse, even if she is ready to get married and he delays, she's not allowed to eat chuma until they actually do a chapa. So now the Gemara begins with Minani Mili. Where do we know this in the Mishnah? Where do we know that a Besula gets 12 months if she wishes to prepare for her wedding? So Amar Rav Chisda, let's turn it out from the Torah Damar Kra. It says in the pasuk, "V'yomer Achya v'Ima Teishev Anayri Yitanu Yamim Oy Asar." Her brother and mother said, "Let the girl remain with us for Yamim Oy Asar or 10." So my Yamim, what does the pasuk mean that let her remain with us before she gets married for Yamim, for days? If it means 2 days, are people actually going to talk that way? Let her stay with us for 2 days? So Amrulei Treyami, if that's what they meant, that they wanted 2 days, let them just say 2 days. Why would they say days in plural? Amrulei Treyami. So Amrulai, so he says no. Amrulei Asari Yamu. So then they said, okay, let her remain for 10 days. Elamai Yamim, so what does the word Yamim mean? Shana. Yamim is a word that days in plural really references a full year. T'chsev Yamim te'agulasai, as the pasuk says, a Yamim, which referring to literally days, but here it means a year, should be the time of the Geula, time of the redemption. So too in our pasuk that says that let this girl remain with us for Yamim, it means for a full year, and that's the source for the fact that a girl gets 12 months to prepare. Ask the Gemara of Ima Chaydesh. Maybe Yamim refers to 1 month. T'chsev ad Chaydesh Yamim till a month of days. Explains the Gemara. Amrudani Yamim Stami Yamim Stami and Yamim Stami Yamim Shnebem Chaydesh. When it came to a month, it didn't just say Yamim days. It says Chaydesh Yamim. So that means that it doesn't just refer to a month as days. It refers to a month of days. Whereas the first pasuk, when it's referring to a year, it calls it just Yamim, and therefore that's we learned that the word Yamim refers to a year. And that is the source from this pasuk that a Basula gets 12 months to prepare for her wedding. But the Gemara continues with Amar of Zera, about 13 lines down. The first one line is Zera. Tana, we learned in our Brayso. Don't think that the din of the Mishnah of a Basula getting 12 months is absolute across the board. Rather, it says that the Brayso, Kitana beini bein aviyah yachol na'akif. A Kitana, both she and her father is able to hold back, is able to postpone the wedding, even after 12 months pass, she or her father has the right to say, no, I want to wait until she becomes a Gedayla. So explains the Gemara. The reason that she herself could hold back, I understand. Why? Because she's a katan, she's not ready to get married. Elavia, but the father, if she wants to get married, why could the father have the right to say, no, she is not ready? So explains the Gemara, Savar, you know why? Because the father believes, right now she doesn't know what she's getting herself into. Lamalcha Merda, tomorrow, you know what's going to happen after she gets married, she's going to rebel. V'nafka, and she's going to leave the husband, V'asya v'nafaluyeh, and she's going to come back home and fall back upon me. So the father has a right in order to have a say in the marriage of his daughter because she's going to eventually come back home in the event that the marriage does not work out. And similarly, continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Abba bar Levi, ein paiskin al katana lesig she katana. You're not allowed to set a wedding date for a katana to marry when she is a katana. Aval paiskin al katana lesig she gedayla. But you're allowed to set a wedding date for a katana for when she becomes a gedayla. Says the Gemara Pshita. That's obvious. What's the chiddush? Of course, you could create a wedding day for when she becomes a gedayla. So explains the Gemara. I would have thought that maybe we should be concerned that maybe she'll become fearful, she'll become weak. She'll become weak. So Kamash Malan, then no. Even though there could be a negative effect of creating the wedding day while she is a ketana, that it might cause her to become nervous. Still, the Gemara is teaching us you're allowed to set a wedding day for when she is a gedayla, even while she is a ketana. So now says the Gemara, so far we've been learning about a din of a ketana. So Amar Avuna Bagra Yemechav in Iskacha. What is the halacha of a bagaris, a girl that becomes 12 and a half years old, and then she does viniskacha, she does irisin. So now how long could she demand to prepare for her wedding? So similar to the kin in the Mishnah, which we said, an almana, over here, bagaris, almana. She gets 30 days to prepare like a almana. So Meisvei asked the Gemara, it says in a Brisa Bagrari Kitavua, a Bagaris is like one who is asked to get married. So the word Tavua sounds like it's a case in which a regular girl was asked to get married. So explains the Gemara, my love Kitavua de Basula. It sounds like it's a regular case of a Basula who was asked to get married, which is what? She gets 12 months to prepare. So why are you telling me that a Bagaris only gets 30 days? Answers the Gemara, Loi Kitfu da Almana means the one like an Almana that was asked to get married, which only gets 30 days. So ask the Gemara further on this din of Bagaris that Ravuna said only gets 30 days. Tashema, Bagaris Shashas Hashem was a Chaydesh. A Bagaris that waited 12 months. Rav Lezer, Imer Oil V'chayv Elam. Since at this point the husband is obligated to feed her Yafer, he's able to annul her vows. So what do we see? It sounds like in this Brisa, it's talking about a Bagaris, and it sounds like they have 12 months to get married, meaning she's able to wait for 12 months to get ready. Answers the Gemara, Ema, Bagaris, Vishashas Hashem was a Chaydesh. It doesn't mean every Bagaris gets 12 months. It means a Bagaris, or one that waited 12 months, then but there is no Raya. The Gemara tries once again, Tashema, let's bring a Raya about this case of Bagaris. It says in the Braisa, Ma'aris is a Basula bin Shetava Abal. Someone does an irisin to a Basula, a woman that was never had relations, bin Shetava Abal, V'hi Ma'akva, bin Shetava Hi, Ubal Ma'akva. Whether the husband wants to get married and she holds back, whether she wants to get married and the husband holds back, what does the Braisa say? She gets 12 months from the moment that the wedding was asked to be had. Avaloi Mishas irisin, but not all the way back from the time that they did the original irisin. Ubagra says the Braisa Reu Kitvua, that a Bagaris is like one who has to get married. So explains the Braisa Keats that Bagra Yemechav and his Gachaf, son of a Bagaris 12 and a half years old, and one day she does a Irisin, Nasla Shem is a Chaydesh, she gets 12 months. So the Braisa says explicitly, Ula Arusa Shleshim Yoim, the Arusa gets 30 days. So what do we see explicit in the Braisa? That a Bagaris gets 12 months to prepare. Says the Gemara, Tiyofta de Ravuna, Tiyofta. This indeed refutes the din of Ravuna. Ravuna was one that said a Bagaris only gets 30 days like an Almana, but we see clearly she gets 12 months. And we conclude today's share with the Gemara that says, what does the end of that Braisa mean? What does it mean that a Rusa gets 30 days? This is what it means. A Bagaris that 12 months have passed while she is a Bagaris, and then in that scenario, 12 months after becoming a Bagaris, and then there's Irisin, then you get 30 days. So the Gemara proves, not like Ravuna, that a Bagaris does indeed get 12 months like a regular Basula, and we're going to pick it up from the next Gemara in the next year in Mir Tzah Hashem.